All right, welcome back to Blackacre Ranch, everybody. My name's Jeff. What I actually wanted to talk to you guys about is how do you estimate the age of a buffalo and why would you want to do it? That's coming up. Stick with us. Okay, everybody, as you know, if you've been following the channel here, I have bought my animals from two different sources. And one of which I have information about the animals and their birth dates. The other one I do not. And so I want to know the age approximately of these females. The two bulls, I already know their age, but I do want to know about the females. And the reason why is because of performance related, okay? We make decisions as producers based on really, did you get pregnant? Should you be pregnant? Are you gonna maybe have some health indicators, issues based on weight, things of that nature, okay? And a lot of that kind of depends on their age. These cows, especially, their one main goal in life is to get pregnant and pop out a baby and make it survive, okay? That's their goal, okay? Me as a producer, I wanna make sure they're happy, I wanna make sure they're doing great, but that is what I need them to do. So whenever I bring them in and we weigh them, I want to make sure that their weight is adequate for their age. I want to make sure that that weight is also sufficient enough, of course, to have babies. All right. If you get to a point where a female doesn't have a baby, you start asking why. Is it a weight problem? Is she just not old enough? Okay. Sometimes is she just really old? You got to cut her some slack or just cull her from the herd. Okay. These are all based kind of on age. Age is a factor that's related to all of these. Okay. You want to give the girls, look, they have a responsibility, but you want to give them a fair shake at fulfilling their responsibility. And if their weight wasn't sufficient because there was a health problem, well, that's understandable. You maybe give them a pass. I need to be then fixing the health issue so that way they can perform at their highest level. Of course, the obvious other reason is, I mean, besides performance, I just think it's good husbandry, right? It's good practice for a producer just to know the age of the herd, all right? You could have some really old cows, you could have some really young cows. I think when we look at them, we just want to know how old they are, be able to associate with them. And I just think it's something that's good practice to do in case in the future I sell it, I would know how old it is. Or if I don't sell it, I want to keep it. You know, any of those types of things. So for one, performance. Two, it's just good practice. I keep hearing these guys chewing, like ripping up the grass. And it's not necessarily too much different than a hoof. Anyway, so it always gets me kind of freaked out. The first aim in any producer being able to have buffalo is at least to be able to tell the difference between a boy and a girl, right? We've got the obvious thing. You can go ahead and look at their little sheath on the bottom when they pee. Hey, that's a boy, okay? But there are some other distinguishing characteristics that allow you to be able to look out at a herd and say, oh, that's a boy, that's a girl, especially when they're younger, okay? Boys typically will have a mature bull, okay, will have more of a triangular shaped head. Meaning if you go from the different horns and you come down to the nose, it's broader up top and it kind of angles down. The females will have more of an elongated head, not so broad at the top. The boys will also have bigger base at the horns. You can see that here from this picture. There's a bigger base on Bartok compared to the cow, who has a very thin base, okay? The diameter doesn't necessarily change over time, but the horn structure can, okay? Then if you just look at the boys are really beefy, their size. You can have some big girls, but you know, typically if you look at their horns, you can look at their head, the big chin, things of that nature. Boys are gonna just be different, okay? That's just the basics of boys versus girls. But the question is, well, how do you tell the girls and the age of the girls? Okay, I'm gonna sweat my nads off out here. Anyway, it is warm. So I have a cheat sheet here, okay? This information, there's not a lot of information based on dictating the age of a buffalo. There's two main ways that people do it on a female, okay, or any buffalo, okay? You can do a dental examination and look at how much the teeth have worn and blah, 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 and get their age and so forth. I'm not doing that, okay? For one, I'm not having a vet come out. Two, I don't have a place for the vet to examine them. Three, a lot of money. For I don't need to be so precise, okay? There's a lot of reasons, okay? But I just wanted to be able to tell what age do I have. So the other way to do it is through the horns, okay? Now I will just tell you, there is not a lot that I have found on estimating age of a female buffalo based on the horns, what they look like and their characteristics, okay, as they've gone through their various different ages. I have found one article from like 1956 from Alberta, something up in Canada, that was republished. It kind of went into some of the details and gave some points from a study. Then there was like this basic flyer that was produced out there that just gives basic structure and stuff on a one-pager. I don't even know when that was or where it was from. The third place I found it was something I think from, it might have been Alberta again. Anyway, or some Alaska, I think it was Alaska. And it kind of just gave some just basic, hey, this is what a boy horn looks like, this is what a girl horn looks like, this is mature versus not, okay? So my point in telling you this is not an exact science, okay? I am not trying to get an exact science and an exact number of their precise age. I just need a ballpark to let me know what I'm in, okay? So as we go through this, I'm gonna illustrate to you some things to look for that is unique that you can kind of gauge somewhat of the age of the animal. They're all staring at me. Goodness, all right, I have nothing else. Oh, 126 is coming up here. Girlfriend, I don't have anything else, okay? I don't have anything. Whoa. And that, my friends, is why you be careful in the middle of a pasture. It's not so much that one buffalo or another buffalo wants to hurt you, it's that there's the hierarchy. And when one needs to move, they need to move, and they just go. Okay, so I'm gonna do this on this side of my truck. So they have different maturity categories or age categories, all right? So you have the age of calf. And as I'm going through this, if you remember, I took pictures of all the buffalo when I got them. And so I will share with you pictures to try and illustrate these things as I talk about them, whether it be from right now or just from 6 months ago, but just to try and illustrate the different horn shapes, okay? So bear with me, I might have some pictures up every once in a while. I'll try and make this simple, okay? First, there's 5 different categories of ages that it was broken down into that I ended up using. I think one article only used 4. But the first category, number 1, is a calf stage. That's 0 to 1 years old, okay? All of the babies that I've got right now are in that category. All right, typically you'll start getting a little spike. It might go out a little bit. On the boys, on boy calves, I believe they get a really big spike that's pretty straight, and then later it starts to curve up. The girls do start to get a spike, okay? Second category, yearling. That's between 1 to 2, 2.5 kind of age, all right? This is where you start having a cow whose horns go out and then they start curving up, okay? They start getting that upward curve. So typically that's around the year mark, 2-ish, kind of around there. Third, gotta get 3, okay? So third is the early mature stage, okay? This is the stage where I was telling you that they could get pregnant around 2.5, okay? They're born typically in the spring, late spring, early summer. So they can get pregnant in August, stuff like that. So a little over 2. Here, what you have is that the girl's horns will start from the upward stage, start to curve in, okay? And up through until about their 4th birthday, 4th year, you can start to see a little bit of a posterior rotation on the horn tip, okay? So you're looking for at this 3rd stage, the curving more into a C shape, and potentially it's going to rotate back at the tip a little bit, all right? Okay, now we have the mature, number 4. These are the mature cows. These are the cows that should be having babies every year. No questions asked, okay? These are typically from 4 up till maybe 8, 9. Good years, strong cows, nothing, no worrying about it, okay? What you're gonna have here is you have widening of the base, okay? So a buffalo's horns, once they curve, they're typically curved. They don't keep rotating around and, you know, like a bighorn sheep, okay? But what you happen is the base actually starts to widen. And so when you're looking at a cow that's a little bit older, maybe more mature, you'll start to see that the spread on her is really, really wide. And I've got a couple cows like that that are just, it's like, gosh, that's pretty darn wide, okay? So the wider the stance on the horns is more of an indication of an older cow, more of a mature cow when it starts doing that. Number one is a mature cow. If you've seen her horns, they're like, kind of weird. So anyway, and then there's the late maturity. These are like butt old, okay? Anyway, these are 9 and on, okay? They're older, they're definitely mature, but their horns, what they start having in these later years, and you can see it even in the category 4. All right, in 5, you'll definitely start seeing it, is where you start getting excessive rings around the base of the horns. He has a lot of rings around the base of the horn. Now, horn rings are not an indication of exact science. It's not like a tree. You cut it down, you count the rings, there's the age, okay? There's no correlation. But when you start getting older, you start having more and more and more of the rings around the horns at the base, okay? So those are the 4 categories: calf, yearling, early maturity, maturity, and then butt old, late maturity, okay? Those are the 5. One other thing I did want to point out, that within that mature, number 4 or number 5 category here, mature or late maturity, you can have a horn break off. And that's not uncommon to see, that they would see that maybe about 5 inches from the skull, it would break off and then it's going to regrow. Now, our example is number 12, okay? She had her horn break off. That isn't uncommon. Of course, any animal at any age can, you know, if you do something nasty with it, it can have a broken horn, okay? But in the maturity stages, it's more common that it can break off and regrow, all right? Okay, I'm gonna do this next segment from the car. And the reason why is because it's freaking hot, okay? You guys are probably gonna expect some like serious reason here. No, it's hot, okay? So I'm gonna sit in the truck for a little bit and cool off. All right, now this is all fine and dandy, okay? You can take this theoretical knowledge and these estimates based on what characteristics people have seen out in the field, and you can go ahead and apply it, right? And you're just gonna say, oh, well, that one's, you know, 6 and that one's 8. Well, you know, I don't know, okay? There's a lot of difficulty. So what's gonna make this a little bit simpler is, like I said before, I have 2 sets of animals. One that I already know ages on, and a second set of animals that I purchased, I don't know any, okay? So there's characteristics from the first that can be used to confirm kind of what things look like to help me assess the others, okay? So Steve's animals have all of their information from their birth dates, okay? So those animals are gonna be useful. The second, here's some factors that I can use from Brent's set of animals, the ones I purchased from Brent. Now those were the 24 females, okay? First thing to understand is all of Brent's animals, when he numbered them, if it was a B number, if it started with a B, that means it was the baby of the corresponding number of the female. Okay, so B9 is the baby of 9, B1 is the baby of 1, B2, and so forth, okay? That's just the way it goes. So I know that if it's a B, it's probably at least younger than the oldest. It's not gonna be the oldest category, okay? Second factor to keep in mind is Brent, when I was talking to him, mentioned that a couple of his, at this point, probably would be 12 or older, okay? You could have a couple 14-year-olds. There are a couple in here that are fairly old. So just based on that knowledge, I'm not it's not gonna be unreasonable to think that 1 or 2 might be pushing an age limit. Third thing is I've got 2 buffalo that are green tagged. Those green tagged I know were more recently purchased, and typically people are going to purchase a younger cow, one that's either just reaching maturity or just after a little bit if they're wanting the baby at the same time that they purchase it with the unborn child and the mom. So I do know within the last 1 or 2 years, I think those 2 greens were purchased. This would then tell me that probably those 2 greens are on the younger, early maturity side, potentially. Okay, now, this fourth factor. Brent started his buffalo, I believe, like 5-6 years ago, and Brent, sorry if I'm wrong, but anyway, it was like 5-6 years ago or so. I'm gonna go with that. And when he purchased them, he purchased a set of buffalo, okay? I'm sure there's gonna be some that were mature. He didn't have just all calves, I know. So whatever ones were maybe mature, 6 years old, 7 years old, whatever, they are gonna be 5 or 6 years older now, okay? So that means there could be a set that are anywhere between 4 to 7 when they were originally purchased would now be anywhere from, you know, give it 6 years older, right? 7 could be 13. If they were 4, they could be 10. So we will have probably a batch that are gonna be around 10 years old, along with those 2 that are older. Along the same line, 5 or 6 years ago, if he's had these buffalo and he uses the numbering convention of B for the baby, that just helps you understand that, okay, anything with a B number probably is less than 5 or 6 years old, or no more than 5 or 6 years old, because he would have tagged it under his naming convention, so they would have been born at his ranch, and his ranch only 5 or 6 years old. Any B would have to be less than that. All right, now this last factor to maybe think about when trying to estimate before you just turn to the horns, and this one is not super telling, I guess is the word. So typically people will number their animals in a sequential order, and so they'll start at a number and they will just go down, okay? So you can kind of use numbering as an indication of age, potentially. At least when you get in a batch, you know, they're not gonna separate all the buffalo into a different, hey, you're this age and you're this age and you're this age, let's run them through and number them all that way. But whatever batch you get, at least that batch will have some sort of a consecutive numbering. Therefore, in our case, we have like 1 through 8, and then we have 12 and 13 and 15, 14. You know, I don't know how many he purchased, but all of a sudden now we have 92, 93, 98, 99, you know. There would probably be something in between that he's maybe gotten rid of over the years. The point being is, sometimes you can look at numbering and say, well, the older, the higher number might be older than the early number. Now, that is not a huge guarantee, okay? But if you had nothing else, maybe you could go to that, all right? That's my weak one, all right? That's the bonus factor, but not really reliable. So anyway. Okay, so if you're anything like me, the question is, well, how does this apply to your herd and how old are your ladies? So I will take you back to the house where I have the Excel spreadsheet. I have everything so I can tell you in more detail some of the things I've been noticing and what this helps me with. So we're going back to the house and I will finish it up there. Welcome to the computer, everybody. Okay, so keep in mind what we did is I took a list and I went through and I went and evaluated all the buffalo, and I categorized them in these 5 categories that we've already talked about, okay? And I'm listing them right over here so you can see them. And I put a category, all right? Once I had them in a category form, I then have this age range, okay? Now at the very beginning stages, 0 to 1, there's not much guessing going on. But when you get to things like mature cows that are 4 to 9 years old or 10 plus, is there much difference? Not necessarily, okay? Kind of think of this like humans, okay? When you see a 30-year-old chick compared to a 40-year-old chick, doesn't look too much different to me, you know? You never know. If you see a 16-year-old girl and you see a 40-year-old chick, you can kind of tell the difference, okay? So this is time for us dudes to sit there and say, look at the chick and guess her age. It's okay to do that right now. But most of what you're gonna be doing is just putting like gut feelings, stuff like that. And ultimately, just like with girls, our main goal is just to know when they're fertile.
I'm right here.
Or not. Okay, scratch that part. I really just want to know when the buffalo are fertile, so screw the other female chick, whatever thing analogy. Anyway, so we have these categories. So when I put a category 1, which didn't exist on mine, I didn't have to worry about it. Category 2, 1 or 2 years old, pretty easy to tell. Category 3, 2.5 to 4, looking a little bit more curvature going on the posterior side. Anyway, I went through that and I generated a list, and this is the list. So here you can kind of see that I've segregated these in different ways, all right? These top ones are Steve's, and this bottom one is Steve's, okay? And I have their birth dates that are listed. Ahmed and Bartok were born here the same year as 126, 30, and 32. This was their first weigh-in, okay? Keep in mind that these weigh-ins are actually 6 months post their birth and 6 months prior to their birthday, okay? So this first column here is going to be their 6-month-old, their 1.5 years, their 2.5 years, that, and then so forth, okay? These are their actual weaning weights, and these are their 18-month-old weights, okay? The green means they're pregnant, they were fertile, and they were able to have a baby, so they went ahead and were noted as green because they had a baby. And all of Steve's, of course, were green thereafter. So they've been doing really good so far. This column on the far side is their age. So Steve's, I know, all of these are 4s. 138 and 139 are the same age. They're 3. And then down at the bottom, you'll see that 149, or Kisses, is actually 2 years old, and she's coming up on her first year that she can have a baby, okay? So that is kind of how we are showing all of our, that's how I put it graphically, okay? Everything between these is Brent's animals, all right? And I put them in somewhat of a numbered order, but mostly it's done by age, as you see here, okay? So our oldest chick is number 1. She's 14 years old. And then it goes down to a group of 11s and a group of 10s, a 9. Now, do I know what a 10-year-old looks like compared to an 11-year-old? I have no freaking clue, okay? I really don't. It was category 5, and they didn't look as bad as number 1, and number 1 was probably about 14, was my oldest, so I cut him some slack and called him younger. I don't know, okay? I don't care because they can have babies, all right? So, they're old. They're definitely not young. As we get going down to some of these others, you'll notice that there's a number of them that are 7, 6. These are ones that were mature, didn't really look that old at all, but they definitely weren't 4 and just barely there. So I kind of used some of the longer base, the widening, and also a little bit of the rings that were at the base to kind of justify that their age was a little bit older. One thing that I wanted to mention was that before we talked about the weight to be able to get pregnant. And it's typically at least like 750 pounds in the age of 2. When we look at Steve's, at the year that they were 18 months, 126, 130, and 132, they were already 700 pounds plus, almost 800 pounds. You look at 138 and 139, they were pushing the same. So I know at least at 18 months, they're still pretty stout chicks, okay? So that next year, when they came in for the scales, and they were pregnant at 2.5, they were 900 to 1,000 pounds or more. Same with this one, okay? 139 was a little bit lighter, but she's pregnant, okay? When I'm looking now and comparing that with the ones that I got from Brent, I have these Bs, which all show up as 3 years old, and this is the weights that I'm seeing. B1 was 780, B2 and B9 were comparable with what Steve had. But then we have B13, 26, and 33, okay? One thing I want to look at is B1, of course, was 780 pounds. And she had signs of pregnancy, but that is really low to be having signs of pregnancy for her weight. So that may have something to do with why there might have been a complication. Talking with somebody else, they kind of wonder if she really even was pregnant. So I don't know, but that is a really low weight to be pregnant. Obviously at 3, now this is the age now, so this was the weight back this last December. When they were 2.5, 944 and 1030, very comparable. They're pregnant. However, B13, no. 26 and 33, no. Now, I will give you some insight. 33 is looking to kind of show a little bit of birthing signs, getting kind of vaginal swelling and stuff. I don't know, we'll see. But these guys were not pregnant, and their weights may not have been sufficient except for these two, which maybe could have, but they just didn't get pregnant, so no big deal. B1 is definitely that outlier. On those same lines, we have number 1, and you go down through until you hit 92 here. The oldest ones are all really doing good, except number 3, except number 99, except number 15. Then you have 12 and you have 14. Then you have all of these others down. These are all pregnant. The green ones are pregnant. The red ones are open, and these yellow ones are no blood drawn. We don't know. Now we do know, of course, that number 1, she's actually pregnant. And she just had a baby, so I can turn her green. 12 is not. But when you look at the weight, given the age, 795, if she's really 9, that's a big red flag. 99, if she's only 870 pounds and she's 10, that's a red flag. Maybe she could have gotten pregnant, but this, number 15, no. Number 3, no. When she's 740 pounds and 11, there's no way she's getting pregnant, okay? So if I'm gonna now look at this information and make a decision about whether or not this animal gets culled, I'll tell you, the first year I might give a pass on a lot of people, but I'm gonna have to see some serious improvement from number 3, number 15, and number 99 had better darn well be pregnant. But 15 and 3, no matter what their weights, I don't know if they're gonna make it. I don't know. They may be culled, but that's why I want to know their age. Because if I would have sat there and thought that number 3 or number 15 were 3 years old, hey, they get told right, no problem. But knowing their age, they don't. Okay. This other column here is just babies being born. The blue ones are the ones I'm still waiting for. These red ones are unknown, like in this case, or yeah, they're not pregnant. Okay, hence to the red. So we have a couple others that we're still waiting for, 139, 17, and I'm hoping maybe 33, but we'll see. So anyway, this is the information. This is why age is important. This is why it's important to keep weights of all of our animals. And, you know, ultimately, whatever your operation is, what's important to you will, you know, help you decide whether or not you cull an animal or not. But this year's looking bright. Hopefully all these animals have no excuse. They should be able to get pregnant. I've got 2 bulls, and we'll see what happens in November. So I hope this is useful. Appreciate you joining along. I try to keep it a little bit interesting, but if you have a bunch of buffalo and you're trying to figure out their ages and you have no other information, these are some factors to go by that we kind of talked about. Also these categories, looking at their horns. Hopefully that helps. All right, we'll catch you next time. Talk to you later. Bye.